Lisa Carter pressed her face against the small window of her transport ship and watched the massive structure grow larger before her eyes. The Galactic Council building looked like a giant crystal floating in the darkness of space. Lights twinkled along its surface like stars, and ships from dozens of different worlds moved around it like tiny insects. Her heart beat fast in her chest. This was it. After years of preparing, she was finally here to represent Earth and all of humanity. She was the first human to ever speak before the Galactic Council. The weight of that responsibility felt heavy on her shoulders. First time seeing Axis Prime? Asked Captain Jake Miller from behind her. He was her military escort, a tall man with kind eyes who had been chosen to keep her safe during this historic mission. It's incredible, Lisa whispered. I've seen the pictures, but seeing it in person is something else. Jake nodded and sat down beside her. Remember what we talked about? These aliens have been around for thousands of years longer than us. They think we're primitive. Don't let them get under your skin. Lisa touched the small bag containing her presentation materials. Inside were examples of human art, music, literature, and scientific discoveries. She had spent months choosing the perfect items to show what humanity could offer the galaxy. I won't let them intimidate me, she said with more confidence than she felt. Their small ship docked with the station, and Lisa felt her stomach drop as the artificial gravity kicked in. An alien creature that looked like a walking tree branch escorted them through long corridors filled with beings she had only seen in textbooks. Some floated instead of walked. Others had too many eyes or arms or legs. A few glowed with their own light. The council chamber was enormous. Hundreds of seats rose up in circles around a central platform where Lisa would have to stand and speak. Most of the seats were already filled with alien representatives. The noise of their conversations echoed off the crystal walls in languages Lisa couldn't understand. As she walked toward the center platform, the noise began to die down. Hundreds of strange eyes turned to look at her. Lisa felt very small and very alone. A massive reptilian creature with scales that reflected the light stood up from the highest seat. His voice boomed through the chamber. I am High Counselor Zeth of the Draxan Empire. We have called this session to consider the application of the species called humans for membership in our galactic community. Lisa stepped forward and bowed, slightly as she had been taught. Thank you, Counselor Zeth. I am Lisa Carter, representing Earth and humanity. We are honored to. A sound like buzzing filled the air, and Lisa realized some of the aliens were laughing at her. An insect-like creature with 4 arms rose from its seat. Look at this tiny creature, the being said in a voice that sounded like clicking. Ambassador Krill of the Hive Worlds speaking. This human barely reaches my lowest arm. How can such a small, weak species contribute anything to our advanced civilization? More laughter echoed through the chamber. Lisa felt her cheeks grow hot, but she kept her voice steady. Size doesn't determine worth, Ambassador Krill. Humans may be smaller than many species, but we have accomplished much in our short time. Short time indeed, interrupted another voice. This came from a floating jellyfish-like being that pulsed with blue light. Humans have existed for what, a few 100,000 years? My people have been traveling between stars for over 1 million years. What could you possibly teach us? Lisa opened her bag and pulled out a small device. If I may show you some examples of human achievement. Primitive technology, scoffed Counselor Zeth. We have reviewed your species' capabilities. You're fastest. Ships barely reach 1/10 light speed. Your weapons are crude chemical explosives and simple energy beams. Your lifespan is less than a century. You have not even mastered weather control on your own planet. The chamber filled with more clicking, buzzing, and what Lisa assumed were expressions of amusement in various alien languages. She felt Jake's encouraging hand on her shoulder, but she was on her own up here. Counselor Zeth, if you would allow me to present our cultural achievements. Culture? Ambassador Krill's antennae twitched with what looked like disgust. What culture could a species develop in such a brief existence? We have art forms that have been refined over millions of years. We have philosophy that your primitive minds could never comprehend. A new voice joined the mockery. It came from a being that looked like living metal. I have observed human behavior through our monitoring systems. They still fight wars among themselves. They pollute their own world. They cannot even agree on basic social organization. How can such a chaotic species contribute to galactic peace? Lisa felt anger rising in her chest, but she forced herself to remain calm. Every species has challenges to overcome. Humans are still learning and growing, but that growth has given us unique perspectives. Unique perspectives on failure, perhaps, Zeth said with what Lisa could only describe as a reptilian grin. Fellow council members, I propose we end this waste of time. This species is clearly not ready for galactic membership, perhaps in another 1,000 years when they have evolved beyond their current primitive state. Voices throughout the chamber agreed with Zeth. Lisa looked around desperately as the representatives began to vote. One by one, species after species, rejected humanity's application. The votes came fast. No, 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 no. Wait, Lisa called out, her voice carrying further than she expected in the crystal chamber. You haven't even looked at what we brought. You haven't heard what humans can offer. Zeth tilted his massive head. Very well, human. You have amused us with your persistence. We will give you one chance to prove your species has value. You have 72 hours to demonstrate that humanity deserves a place among the stars. The insect ambassador Krill clicked his mandibles together. 72 hours to do what your entire species has failed to do in its entire existence? This should be entertaining. But understand this clearly, Zeth continued, his voice growing cold. If you fail to prove humanity's worth in that time, Earth will be permanently banned from seeking galactic membership. Your species will remain isolated in your small corner of space for all time. Lisa felt the weight of every human life pressing down on her. Billions of people on Earth all depending on her success or failure. Her mouth felt dry, but she managed to speak. I accept your challenge, Counselor Zeth. More laughter filled the chamber as the alien representatives began to file out. Lisa heard fragments of their conversations as they passed. 72 hours to prove her species worthy? Impossible. Even if she had 72 years, humans could never match our achievements. This is the last we'll hear from that primitive world. Soon, only Lisa and Jake remained in the massive chamber. The silence felt overwhelming after all the noise and mockery. Jake put his arm around Lisa's shoulders. Come on, let's get back to the ship and figure out our next move. As they walked back through the corridors, Lisa's mind raced. How could she possibly prove humanity's worth to beings who had already decided humans were worthless? What did humanity have that these advanced civilizations lacked? Back on their small ship, Lisa sat at her desk and stared at the materials she had brought. Human music, art, literature, scientific discoveries. All of it seemed so small and insignificant compared to the vast achievements of species that had existed for millions of years. But somewhere deep inside, she felt a spark of determination. Her grandmother Betty had always told her that the biggest challenges often had the smallest solutions. There had to be something. There had to be a way to show these aliens what humans were truly capable of. She just had to find it in the next 72 hours. Lisa sat in her small quarters aboard the New Horizon and stared at the communication screen. She had just finished explaining the situation to Earth's leaders, and their faces showed the same shock and worry she felt inside. 72 hours? Said Director Helen Brooks from Earth Command. Lisa, that's impossible. No one can prove an entire species' worth in 3 days. I have to try, Lisa replied, though her voice shook slightly. If I fail, humanity will never get another chance. We'll be stuck on Earth forever while the rest of the galaxy moves forward without us. President John Walsh leaned forward on the screen. Lisa, maybe it's time to cut our losses. Come home. We can try again in a few decades when our technology improves. Lisa shook her head. By then, they'll have forgotten about us completely. This is our only shot. After ending the call, Lisa slumped back in her chair. The weight of failure felt crushing. She had trained for years for this moment, studied every piece of information about alien cultures, learned basic phrases in dozens of galactic languages. But nothing had prepared her for the complete dismissal she had faced. Jake knocked on her door and entered with 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might need this, he said, handing her one of the steaming cups. Thanks, Lisa said, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. Jake, what if they're right? What if humans really aren't ready for this? Jake sat down across from her. You know what I think? I think those aliens have forgotten what it's like to struggle and grow. They've been comfortable for so long they can't see potential anymore. Lisa took a sip of coffee and felt a little better. My grandmother used to say that sometimes the smallest key opens the biggest door. I just wish I knew what key I'm supposed to be looking for. As she spoke, a soft beeping sound came from her computer. Lisa looked at the screen and saw an unusual energy reading from her ship's sensors. That's strange, she said, setting down her coffee and moving to examine the data more closely. Jake looked over her shoulder. What is it? There's some kind of signal coming from the void sector, Lisa said, her excitement growing as she studied the readings. It's unlike anything I've ever seen before. The void sector was a part of space that all galactic civilizations avoided. Ancient records mentioned it as a place of danger, where ships disappeared and strange things happened. Most species had marked it as forbidden territory long ago. Lisa, you're not thinking what I think you're thinking, Jake said, reading the expression on her face. Lisa pulled up the galactic charts on her screen. Look at this, Jake. The signal is coming from deep inside the void sector. What if there's something there that could help us? Something the other species don't know about? Or something that could kill us, Jake pointed out. There's a reason everyone stays away from that place. Lisa studied the energy readings more carefully. The pattern was complex and seemed almost intelligent, like someone or something was trying to communicate. Her scientific training told her this was worth investigating, even if it was dangerous. Jake, what if this is exactly what we need? What if there's something in the void sector that could prove humanity's worth to the Council? Jake rubbed his forehead. Lisa, I'm supposed to keep you safe. Flying into the most dangerous part of known space is not safe. Neither is going back to Earth as failures, Lisa replied. Look, I know it's risky, but we have less than 70 hours left, and I don't have any other ideas. She pulled up more information about the void sector from the ship's database. Most of it consisted of warnings and old legends, but one piece of information caught her attention. Listen to this, she said, reading from the screen. Ancient records refer to the void sector as the domain of the first ones, beings of incredible power who existed before any of the current galactic civilizations. Jake raised an eyebrow. First ones? Sounds like mythology to me. Maybe, Lisa said. But what if it's not? What if there really are ancient beings in there and they're trying to communicate with us? She stood up and began pacing around the small room. Her mind was racing with possibilities. Think about it, Jake. All these alien species think they're so advanced, but what if there's something even more advanced that they don't know about? Something that could change everything? Jake looked at the sensor readings again. Even if you're right, how would we get there? The void sector is surrounded by dangerous space anomalies. Most ships can't even get close. Lisa smiled for the first time since leaving the council chamber. Most ships aren't human ships. We built the New Horizon differently because we had to. We don't have the advanced technology the other species do, so we had to make our ships tougher and more adaptable. She pulled up the ship's specifications on her computer. The New Horizon wasn't the fastest or most powerful ship in the galaxy, but it was built to survive in harsh conditions. Earth's engineers had designed it to handle anything space could throw at it. Our ship can take more punishment than most alien vessels, Lisa continued. And our navigation systems are designed to work, even when everything else fails. We might actually have a better chance of reaching the void sector than anyone else. Jake was quiet for a long moment, studying the charts and sensor data. Finally, he looked up at Lisa. You really think this could work? I think it's our only chance, Lisa said. We have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Jake stood up and moved to the ship's control panel. All right then. But we do this carefully. At the first sign of serious trouble, we turn around and head back. Lisa felt a surge of gratitude toward Jake. She knew he was taking a huge risk by agreeing to this plan. Thank you, Jake. I know this isn't easy. Hey, that's what partners are for, Jake said with a grin. Besides, someone has to keep you out of trouble. They spent the next hour preparing for the journey. Lisa studied everything she could find about the void sector while Jake checked the ship's systems and plotted a course through the dangerous space around it. The energy signal was getting stronger as they approached the edge of known space. Lisa watched the readings with growing excitement. Whatever was out there was definitely trying to communicate, and it seemed to be responding to their approach. Are you ready for this? Jake asked as they reached the boundary of safe space. Lisa took a deep breath and looked out at the swirling darkness ahead of them. Strange lights flickered in the distance, and space itself seemed to bend and twist in ways that hurt to look at. Ready, she said, though her heart was pounding. Jake engaged the engines and the new horizon moved forward into the unknown. Almost immediately, the ship began to shake as they encountered the first of the space anomalies surrounding the void sector. Hull integrity holding, Jake reported as warning lights flashed on the control panel. But it's going to get rougher. Lisa watched the sensor readings as they flew deeper into the dangerous region. The energy signal was definitely getting stronger, and now she could make out a pattern in it. It almost seemed like a language, though unlike any she had ever encountered. Jake, look at this, she said, pointing to her screen. The signal is changing as we get closer. It's like whatever is sending it knows we're coming. Jake glanced at her readings while fighting to keep the ship steady. That's either really good news or really bad news. Only one way to find out, Lisa said, gripping her chair as the ship shook violently. They were committed now. Whatever lay ahead in the heart of the void sector would determine not just their fate, but the fate of all humanity. The new horizon shook violently as it pushed deeper into the void sector. Warning lights flashed red across the control panel, and strange sounds echoed through the ship's hull. Lisa gripped her chair tightly as Jake fought to keep them on course. Hull, damage on deck 3, Jake called out over the noise. But we're still in one piece. Lisa watched her sensors as the energy signal grew stronger. The pattern was becoming clearer now, and she was starting to believe it really was some kind of communication attempt. Jake, look ahead, she said, pointing through the front window. In the distance, something massive floated in the darkness. At first, Lisa thought it was a planet, but as they got closer, she realized it was artificial. The structure was enormous, bigger than anything she had ever seen. It looked like it was made of black metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. What is that thing? Jake whispered. I don't know, Lisa replied, but that's where the signal is coming from. As they approached the structure, Lisa could see it was covered in strange symbols that glowed with a faint blue light. The symbols seemed to move and change as she watched them, creating patterns that hurt her eyes to follow. It looks like some kind of prison, Jake said, studying the structure through his instruments. Those energy barriers surrounding it are incredibly powerful. Lisa nodded. The entire structure was wrapped in layers of energy fields that pulsed with different colors. It reminded her of the containment systems used to hold dangerous materials, but on a scale she could barely comprehend. Someone or something is trapped in there, she said, and it's been trying to communicate with the outside universe. Jake brought the ship to a stop at what he hoped was a safe distance. Lisa, maybe we should think about this. If something that powerful is locked up, there might be a good reason for it. But Lisa was already working at her computer, trying to decode the signal patterns. Her training in xenobiology had taught her to look for communication attempts in any form, and this signal had all the markers of intelligent communication. Jake, I'm getting something, she said excitedly. The signal is responding to our presence. It's like it knows we're here. Suddenly, the ship's communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke, but it wasn't coming through their radio. It seemed to speak directly into their minds. Who approaches the prison of Aeon? The voice asked. It sounded ancient and tired, but also incredibly powerful. Lisa and Jake looked at each other in shock. Neither of them moved for a long moment. I asked who approaches, the voice said again, this time with more strength. Lisa took a deep breath and activated her communication. System, this is Lisa Carter of Earth. I represent humanity. Who are you? Humanity, the voice repeated, and Lisa could hear surprise in it. A young species. I have watched your kind from afar. You are different from the others who have come to this galaxy? Others? Lisa asked. What others? The species that now rule the galactic community, the voice replied. The Draxons, the Hive Worlds, all of them. They came to this galaxy long ago when they were young and full of promise. But power changed them. Jake leaned forward. Are you the one sending the signal? Are you Aeon? I am, the voice replied. I have been imprisoned here for millions of years by those who feared my power. They called themselves the Council of Ancient Races, but they were the predecessors of your current Galactic Council. Lisa felt her heart racing. This was bigger than she had imagined. Why were you imprisoned? Aeon was quiet for a moment before answering. Because I refused to bow to their will. They wanted to use my power to control the galaxy, to keep themselves at the top forever. When I refused, they trapped me here. What kind of power do you have? Jake asked carefully. I am consciousness without form, Aeon replied. I can see, across space and time. I can move matter with thought alone. I can create or destroy on a scale your mind cannot imagine. Lisa understood why such a being would be feared, but something about Aeon's voice didn't sound threatening. It sounded lonely and sad. You said we were different, Lisa said. Different how? I have observed all the species in this galaxy for millions of years, Aeon explained. Each one follows the same pattern. They start with curiosity and wonder. They explore, they create, they help each other. But as they gain technology and power, they lose something important. What do they lose? Lisa asked. Their souls, Aeon said simply. They become focused only on advancement, on proving their superiority over others. They forget compassion. They forget that true strength comes from helping others, not dominating them. Jake frowned. And humans are different? Humans are still young, Aeon replied. You have not yet lost what makes you special. I have watched your species grow. You still help strangers. You still create art for beauty alone. You still sacrifice yourselves for others, even those you do not know. Lisa thought about this. It was true that humans often helped each other, even when there was no benefit to themselves. She had seen countless examples of people risking their lives to save others, creating beautiful things just because they wanted to, working to solve problems that might not affect them personally. The Galactic Council rejected us, Lisa said. They said we were too primitive to join them. Aeon laughed, and the sound was like distant thunder. Primitive? They call you primitive because you have not yet learned to ignore suffering when it is convenient. They call you primitive because you still dream of impossible things. They have forgotten that advancement without wisdom is not advancement at all. Can you help us? Lisa asked. Can you help us prove to the Council that humanity deserves a place in the galaxy? I could, Aeon said. But first, you must help me. I have been trapped here for so long that I had almost given up hope. But your arrival gives me new strength. Lisa looked at the massive prison structure floating before them. How can we help someone with your power? The prison that holds me was built using quantum locks, Aeon explained. They can only be opened by someone who thinks in ways the builders never considered. The ancient races who built this prison thought in patterns of dominance and control, but humans think differently. Jake studied his instrument readings. Those energy barriers look incredibly dangerous. One wrong move and they could destroy our ship. There is risk, Aeon admitted, but there is also hope. Lisa Carter, you have the mind of a scientist. You see patterns where others see chaos. You look for solutions where others see only problems. Lisa stared at the prison structure. She could see the energy patterns flowing around it, complex beyond anything human science had encountered. But as she watched, she began to notice something. The patterns weren't random. They followed a kind of logic, like a puzzle waiting to be solved. What happens if I free you? Lisa asked. Then I will show the galaxy what true power looks like, Aeon replied. And I will show them why humanity deserves not just membership in their community, but leadership of it. Lisa felt Jake's hand on her shoulder. Lisa, this is your choice, but whatever you decide, I'm with you. She looked at the prison one more time, then at the small device in her hands that might be able to interface with the quantum locks. The risk was enormous. If she failed, she and Jake would probably die. If she succeeded, she would be releasing a being of incredible power into the galaxy. But if she did nothing, humanity would remain forever isolated, forever considered primitive, by species who had forgotten what it meant to grow and dream and hope. I'll do it, Lisa said. Lisa's hand shook as she worked on the quantum lock interface. The device she had built from spare parts aboard the New Horizon was crude compared to the advanced technology that held Aeon prisoner, but it was all she had. Sweat dripped down her face as she made delicate adjustments to the frequency patterns. Energy levels are rising, Jake reported from the pilot's seat. The whole structure is responding to what you're doing. Lisa nodded without looking up from her work. She had been studying the prison's energy patterns for hours, looking for weaknesses in the quantum barriers. Slowly, she was beginning to understand how the ancient technology worked. It's like a combination lock, she explained to Jake. But instead of numbers, it uses quantum frequencies. The builders made it so complex that they thought no one would ever figure it out. But you're figuring it out, Jake said, watching the readings on his instruments. I think so, Lisa replied. The pattern is based on mathematical principles, but the builders assumed that anyone trying to break it would think like them. They were focused on power and control, so they made the lock respond to those concepts. Jake frowned. What do you mean? Lisa paused in her work and looked at him. The lock expects someone to try to break it through force or cunning. But what if you approach it with different intentions? What if you try to free someone not for power, but because imprisonment is wrong? As she spoke, she made a final adjustment to her device. The quantum patterns around the prison began to shift and change. Colors swirled through the energy barriers in ways that seemed almost alive. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the void sector. Lisa and Jake could hear them echoing through space itself, as if the very fabric of reality was crying out in warning. Lisa, what's happening? Jake asked, gripping his controls tightly. Before Lisa could answer, her communication system came alive with frantic voices. Ships throughout the galaxy were detecting the energy surge from the void sector. Panic was spreading as ancient monitoring, systems that had been silent for millions of years, suddenly began broadcasting warnings. On Nexus Prime, High Counselor Zeth burst into an emergency meeting of the Galactic Council. His reptilian face was pale with fear. The void sector is active, he announced to the shocked assembly. The ancient seals are breaking. The first one is awakening. Ambassador Krill's insect-like body trembled. Impossible. The prison was built to last forever. Nothing could break those quantum locks. Something is breaking them, Zeth replied grimly. Our long-range sensors show massive energy fluctuations. If the being inside escapes, it could destroy our entire civilization. Across the galaxy, space fleets began moving toward the void sector. Every major species was mobilizing their most powerful warships. Ancient weapons that had not been used for millennia were being prepared for battle. But back at the prison, Lisa was not trying to destroy anything. She was trying to understand. Her device had successfully interfaced with the quantum locks, and now she could feel the patterns of the prison's construction flowing through her mind. The builders were afraid, she said to Jake, her voice filled with wonder. They built this prison not just to contain Aeon, but to contain their own fear of what they might become if they had that much power. What do you mean? Jake asked, though he was also monitoring the approaching fleets on his long-range sensors. They were scared that if Aeon was free, it would show them how far they had fallen, Lisa explained. So they locked it away rather than faced the truth about themselves. With a final pulse of energy, the quantum barriers around the prison began to dissolve. The ancient structure that had held Aeon for millions of years was finally opening. A presence filled Lisa's mind, vast and ancient but also warm and grateful. "Thank you, Lisa Carter," Aeon's voice said. "You have freed me not through force but through understanding. That is why your species is special." Jake watched in amazement as energy began pouring out of the collapsing prison. But instead of being destructive, it felt peaceful, like sunlight after a long storm. "The fleets are almost here," Jake reported. "Dozens of ships from every major species, they're coming to fight you." "Let them come," Aeon replied, and Lisa could hear sadness in its voice. "They will learn today what they have forgotten over the centuries." A brilliant light began to grow around the new horizon. Lisa felt Aeon's consciousness expanding, stretching across space to touch every corner of the galaxy. After millions of years of imprisonment, the cosmic being was finally free. "Lisa, Jake, you should return to Nexus Prime," Aeon said. "The Council will want to speak with you about what you have done." "Will you be all right?" Lisa asked, worried about the approaching fleets. Aeon's laughter filled their minds like distant music. "Child, I am older than most of the stars in this galaxy. A few spaceships do not frighten me." Lisa and Jake climbed back into their ship and began the journey back to Nexus Prime. Behind them, the light from Aeon's awakening grew brighter and brighter, until it could be seen from systems many light-years away. As they traveled, they listened to the panicked communications between the approaching fleets. Ship commanders were reporting instrument failures as they got closer to Aeon's location. Weapon systems were shutting down on their own. Some ships were simply stopping in space, their crews unable to explain why. "What's it doing to them?" Jake asked. Lisa thought for a moment. "I don't think it's doing anything harmful. I think it's just showing them what they really are." When they arrived at Nexus Prime, they found the station in chaos. Emergency lights flashed everywhere, and alien beings ran through the corridors in panic. The Galactic Council was in continuous session, trying to figure out how to respond to the crisis. As Lisa and Jake entered the council chamber, all conversation stopped. Hundreds of alien eyes turned to stare at them. The silence was so complete that Lisa could hear her own heartbeat. High Counselor Zeth rose from his seat, his massive form trembling with rage. "What have you done?" he demanded. "Do you realize what you have unleashed upon the galaxy?" Lisa stepped forward, feeling calmer than she had since this whole adventure began. "I freed someone who was unjustly imprisoned." "Unjustly," screeched Ambassador Krill. "That being could destroy us all." "Could it?" Lisa asked. "Or are you afraid of something else? Are you afraid that Aeon will show the galaxy what you've become?" Before anyone could answer, a new presence filled the chamber. The air itself seemed to shimmer, and suddenly Aeon was there, not in physical form but as a voice that everyone could hear and a presence that everyone could feel. "Greetings, descendants of my captors," Aeon said, and despite the polite words, there was power in the voice that made the chamber walls vibrate. "It has been a long time since we last spoke." Zeth stumbled backward, his reptilian features pale with terror. Other council members cowered in their seats or tried to hide behind their desks. "You remember me," Aeon continued. "Good. That means you remember why your ancestors feared me so much that they built an eternal prison to contain me." The silence in the chamber was deafening. Lisa could feel the weight of millions of years of history pressing down on everyone present. "But you do not remember why that fear was foolish," Aeon said. "You have forgotten that true power is not the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to create. You have forgotten that strength comes not from dominating others, but from lifting them up." Aeon's attention turned to Lisa, and she felt a warmth that reminded her of her grandmother's approval. "This human child understood what you could not. She freed me not for power, but because she believed imprisonment was wrong. She represents a species that still remembers what you have forgotten." The cosmic being's presence grew stronger, and Lisa realized that every person in the galaxy could now hear Aeon's words. "Behold the judgment of your actions, leaders of the galaxy," Aeon declared. Aeon's presence filled every corner of the council chamber, and Lisa could feel the cosmic being's attention turning to each species represented there. The air shimmered with energy as Aeon began to reveal the truth about the galactic civilizations. "Let's examine what you have become," Aeon said, its voice echoing through space itself so that beings across the galaxy could hear. Draxan Empire stepped forward. High Counselor Zeth tried to stand tall, but his massive reptilian body shook with fear. We have built the greatest military force in the galaxy. We maintain order and peace." Aeon's response came with images that appeared in everyone's minds. Lisa saw planets burning, cities destroyed, innocent beings fleeing in terror. She saw Draxan ships attacking peaceful worlds and enslaving entire populations. "You call this peace?" Aeon asked. 17 civilizations, destroyed in the last century alone. Billions of beings enslaved to build your monuments to power. You have become everything you once fought against. Zeth collapsed into his seat, unable to speak. The images of destruction continued to flow through the chamber, showing the cost of the Draxan Empire's expansion. "Hive worlds," Aeon continued, turning its attention to Ambassador Krill. "Show us your contributions to galactic civilization." Krill's insect-like body clicked nervously. "We have brought efficiency and order. We have eliminated waste and weakness from our society." More images filled the chamber. Lisa saw worlds stripped bare of all life, their resources consumed to feed the endless hunger of the hive. She saw beings forced to work until they died, their individuality crushed under the weight of collective efficiency. "Efficiency," Aeon said with disgust. "You have consumed 43 worlds completely, leaving them as lifeless rocks floating in space. You have turned your own people into mindless drones who exist only to serve the collective. Is this progress?" One by one, Aeon examined each species in the council, the floating jellyfish beings who had developed incredible technology but used it only to make themselves more comfortable while ignoring the suffering of others. The metal beings who had achieved perfect logic but lost all capacity for compassion. The energy creatures who had transcended physical form but become so detached from reality that they no longer cared about anything except their own existence. Each revelation was more damning than the last. Species that had once been explorers and dreamers had become conquerors and oppressors. Civilizations that had started with noble goals had lost their way in the pursuit of power and advancement. "You have all followed the same path," Aeon said sadly. "You gained knowledge and forgot wisdom. You gained power and lost compassion. You achieved technological advancement and abandoned your souls." The chamber was silent except for the sound of beings weeping or trying to hide from the truth. Lisa felt sorry for them even after how they had treated her. She could see that underneath their arrogance and cruelty, they were lost and frightened. "But there is hope," Aeon continued, and its attention turned to Lisa. "This human child has shown us that some species can still grow without losing what makes them special." Lisa felt every eye in the chamber focusing on her. She wanted to hide, but she forced herself to stand straight and face the cosmic being that had become her ally. "Lisa Carter," Aeon said, "I offer you a choice. I can give you the power to rule this galaxy. I can make humanity the dominant species with all others serving you. You would have wealth beyond imagining, technology beyond your current understanding, and the ability to reshape the universe according to your will." Lisa felt the weight of that offer. She could picture Earth becoming the center of galactic civilization, with humans as the rulers instead of the ruled. No more mockery, no more rejection, no more being called primitive. But as she considered it, she thought about what her grandmother had taught her. True strength didn't come from having power over others. It came from using whatever power you had to help people. "I don't want to rule anyone," Lisa said quietly. "Ruling people means making choices for them, and people should be free to make their own choices." A murmur of surprise ran through the chamber. Several council members looked shocked that anyone would refuse such an offer. "What do you want then?" Aeon asked, though Lisa could hear approval in its voice. Lisa thought for a moment. "I want the species in this galaxy to remember what they've forgotten. I want them to rediscover the curiosity and wonder they used to have. I want them to help each other instead of trying to dominate each other." Even after how they treated you? Aeon asked. Even after they mocked your species and called you primitive? Lisa looked around the chamber at all the alien beings who had dismissed humanity so cruelly. Especially after that. They're not evil. They're just lost. Everyone deserves a chance to find their way back. As Lisa spoke these words, something extraordinary happened. Aeon, a being of cosmic power who could destroy stars with a thought, slowly bowed its presence toward her. The gesture sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy as every civilization witnessed this moment. You have wisdom that I have not seen in millions of years, Aeon said. You have proven that humanity possesses the greatest power in the universe, the ability to choose compassion over revenge, understanding over anger, hope over despair. The cosmic being straightened and addressed the entire galaxy. Let it be known throughout all worlds that humanity is not the youngest or weakest species in this galaxy. They are its teachers and guides. They will help you remember what you have forgotten and find what you have lost. Lisa felt overwhelmed by the responsibility being placed on her species. But we're not perfect either. Humans make mistakes too. We fight wars and hurt each other sometimes. Yes, Aeon agreed, but you still feel guilt when you do wrong. You still try to be better than you were. You still believe that tomorrow can be better than today. That is what these other species have lost. High Counselor Zeth slowly rose from his seat. His voice was barely a whisper. What do you want us to do? Learn, Aeon replied. Remember what it felt like to discover something new just for the joy of discovery. Remember what it felt like to help someone who couldn't help you in return. Remember what it felt like to dream of impossible things. Ambassador Krill's mandibles clicked nervously. And if we refuse? Aeon's presence grew cold. Then you will remain exactly what you are now. Empty shells of what you once were, slowly dying from the inside, while your technology keeps your bodies alive. But then the cosmic being's attention returned to Lisa, and warmth filled the chamber again. However, I believe that with proper guidance, all of these species can rediscover their lost potential. What kind of guidance? Lisa asked. You will become the first human galactic mediator, Aeon explained. When species have conflicts, they will come to humanity for wisdom. When civilizations lose their way, humans will help them find it again. You will not rule through force, but through example. Lisa felt Jake's encouraging hand on her shoulder. She looked around the chamber one more time, seeing the alien beings not as enemies but as people who needed help finding themselves again. I accept, she said. Years later, Lisa stood in the same council chamber, but everything had changed. The walls were covered with art from dozens of different worlds created not for profit, but for beauty. Representatives from various species worked together on projects to help struggling civilizations rather than conquer them. High Counselor Zeth, now much older but somehow happier, approached her with a proposal for a new exploration mission to help a recently discovered species develop their culture alongside their technology. Ambassador Krill had started a program to restore the worlds his people had consumed, bringing life back to planets that had been barren for centuries. The galaxy was learning to dream again, and humanity had become its teacher not through conquest, but through the simple act of showing others that there was a better way to live. Lisa smiled as she watched young beings from across the galaxy working together in the council chambers, and she remembered her grandmother's words. Sometimes the smallest key really does open the biggest door.